one of the things that's always fascinated me with you, as well as your brother, but he's not here and we're talking to you,
Yeah.
is your guys, and we've mentioned this many times, is your guys' incessant need and skill and out-of-the-box thinking to create narrative stories.
Yeah.
Literally sometimes for fun, in a serious way,
Or they come out of nowhere.
or just as a mind exercise.
Yeah. Well, what happens is you get an idea, and then when we were little, we would just act out the ideas, right? Because they become real, and then you can move on to the next idea, right? So, but nowadays it's more like you come up with the idea, think about it, flesh it out a little bit. What's the science? What's the characters? What's the how does it work, right?
How did you get that skill? Because I know your family in general is very story-oriented, or you're like, I remember from even being a kid, we talked about this in the Midnight Special once, but your family and your grandma has this story she would tell about a box. And I love that story. We've heard it forever, but...
Good story.
Because your family has this story, how is it like, did you guys just pick it up because you were around it all the time? Or did you guys, like... How did you guys become such good storytellers?
I think it was mostly it's mostly probably just from active imaginations, TV, movies, somewhat. You know, we liked the classic, some of the classic Disney movies. You know, really gets your imagination going. Tarzan, I love Tarzan.
Oh yeah,
right? But yeah, so we watched that. And then John Mark was always coming up with the ideas, right? And I would help him come up with new characters, and then we would act it out. We would run out into the yard and be like, you know, my name is such and such, your name is such and such. We're this age, and we have time traveled into the future where we meet our future selves, and we go on this adventure, right?
Yeah.
And then, it was always situational, right? We'd be at a park, and so since the scenery and the setting is different, there's a different story. When we were really little, I remember this vivid. I don't know how old we were. We had to have been only, I don't know, 4. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you'd be taking a bath, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
You'd be taking a bath.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And so you're in a water world now.
Oh, yeah.
Right? You have gills, you can swim underwater, and now you go on this water world adventure.
Yep.
Right? So you know.
You become Aquaman.
But I remember, did you guys ever have one of those wheel things that you sat on the kitchen floor and you'd spin it, and it'd spin? Right?
Yeah.
Well, John Mark and I, when we were really little, because the thing's probably only about this big around.
Yeah.
Right? So we had to have been really little.
We would sit
cross-legged, and we'd spin it really fast.
Yes.
And make you dizzy.
And we would we time traveled. That's how we time traveled. It was literally a time machine for us.
Dude, see, that's a beautiful thing. I mean, I truly think that I truly think that creators originate from 2 places. Either really active childhood imaginations or really rebellious outside of the box, getting in trouble imaginations. Because, and those people usually end up being artists that, do like actual art. They become like tattoo artists. They become like, maybe photographers, but also they did a lot of graffiti in their life.
There's definitely a broodingness to art.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lydia's an artist.
Yeah.
She does a lot of physical art, and there's definitely a broodingness to it.
Okay, let me ask you this as Lydia. Okay, so Lydia's your sister.
Yeah.
For people who don't know.
You have 2 sisters.
Two sisters, Maddie and Lydia. So Lydia's into art. Have you ever caught her doing any kind of graffiti work? Like maybe on a tree or maybe in a hidden part of the house that people wouldn't go off in?
No. I would really like... I mean, I'd like to see her, putting her art somewhere more public, right? But for the most part, she just, she doodles. She has lots of books. She has these little frames about this big of canvas, right? And she'll go on those and do little miniature art things and things like that. And then sometimes she has big canvases that she does art on. And so you go into her room, she's got art all over her wall that she's done, which is interesting to me because, you know, for a lot of young girls, you go into their room and it's art that other people have done. And it's bands and it's movies and it's shows, right?
And it's shirtless dudes just freaking...
No, but Lydia does all that herself.
So she wants to see...
She draws the shirtless dudes.
She draws the shirtless dude. She's like, yes,
this
is perfect.
This is going on
This
the
is
wall.
what I wanted. I didn't want anyone else editing my work.
Right, exactly. No, but yeah, so, I mean... Yeah. And we had, I guess Ethan sort of was shoehorned in there, but he never went along with our stories, right? Because we'd be like, all right, here's the character.
Yep.
Here is the story. Here's the setting. Here's where we're going, right? Yep. And it's you just say, okay, it's a space. We're in space, right? But Ethan is a squid pirate, right, with a wiffle ball bat.
Oh,
right?
Man.
He makes up his own story. He bursts the illusion because he wants to inflict pain.
Well, that's we did a midnight special called "Everybody Hates Ethan," and you get to know. I would recommend going back and listening to that if you want.
It's on Spotify.
Well, it's interesting because the podcast goes very similar to Ethan's life.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. It goes from how we, what we were talking about as far as the subject matter. Ethan's early terrible. His terrible twos lasted into his teens, right?
Those twos.
And so, and then it goes into, who he is now, and the tone really changes, right? From the beginning of the podcast to the end of the podcast, the tone somewhere in there changes because we get into what he's into now. Right, because he's a preacher, and so that's what we start talking about.
Opposite to Troublemaker Kid.
That's
opposite,
funny.
yeah. It's really interesting, and Ethan's got a really good story and a really good testimony.
Yeah, go shout out, I guess. And Josh was right. Go listen to that episode. It was a good one.
I know you're probably not finished, but I'm hearing you're asking you're saying kind of defining, and you don't have to define yourself per se, but you're defining John Mark as the storyteller. You're defining Lydia as the artist. You're defining Ethan as the
preacher
the
boy,
crazy crack dad of the group.
The crack dad.
The violent preacher boy, maybe.
But you're not really. What are you, Wyatt? How do you see yourself as an individual? I mean, you don't have to put a title on it, but what? Because you're here on the podcast.
Yeah.
You guys have had a dynamic that's been different than like our dynamic with being friends, but you're still here on the podcast. What do you think led you to here? Because there's probably something.
Probably the ocean.
And that was part of it, yeah.
Cheeks and dimples.
Did you just smile?
I did.
Well, John Mark's got dimples too, so
the cute factors, it
crosses over. Yeah. Well, I guess it was more of because I see myself as a creative as well.
Yeah.
Right, as far as the ideas go.
Like, what do you mean, like storyteller too?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I can compose the ideas, right? They're always there. And there's new ones that always pop up all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like I was thinking about the other day, what if there was a story about people who lived in, like these giant rivers, just fast flowing rivers, but they're regular people, but their houses are nestled in these like rocks that are kind of half out of the river. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right? Dumb ideas. It's
not dumb.
Right? They spark,
We were talking about a story from Bitcoin too. That's cool.
Yeah.
But we'll get into that.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that now.
Yeah, that was fun. But we I don't know. I like to go over the possibilities, right? And I think it's the same way with artists, I guess. like comic book artists, right? They have the same ideas. They just have the ability to create the ideas because they're artists, right? I can't necessarily draw my ideas, but I think through them, right?
You've drawn a good bit of stuff, though.
I have drawn some things, but anytime I try to draw something, I guess interesting or something that's not wacky and supposed to be kind of, different. I can draw those. I can draw the cartoons really fun, right? But anytime I'm like, ooh, I'd really like to capture this moment from a book or something going on in my head, can't do it. Can't do it.